Welcome to our discussion on different types of sources and how to find them. One of the most important things we have to do when starting a research assignment is to figure out what sources we need and where we can go to find them. Also, we have so many different source options available now, especially electronically. How do we know which option is the best? How do we determine if a source is a good source? We are in information overload today in our society, and sometimes there's not an easy answer to any of the questions listed here. But these 3 questions are among the first ones you should ask yourself when you start working on an assignment. What type of source do I need? Where can I find these different types of sources? And which type of source is the best for my needs, and how can I determine that? To figure out what type of source is needed, you should always start by turning to the assignment criteria. Often, the assignment clearly states what kind of source we should look for, but sometimes it's a little confusing. Here are some key terms to watch out for. Does the assignment simply mention outside sources, or are you required to find your sources within the CSU library? Outside sources can sometimes include just about anything that's reliable, including your textbook or course study guide. But if your assignment specifies library resources, then you will need to stick to our library databases when searching for information. Many times, you will be instructed to find a credible source, but what does that mean? Or you may be asked to find a specific type of article, like a scholarly article or academic or peer-reviewed article. Are these terms interchangeable? And if you're asked to find professional articles, are those the same as peer-reviewed? We will discuss these different terms in just a moment. But if you are ever in doubt about which type you need, don't hesitate to ask your course professor. Your professors often have very specific ideas about what types of resources are acceptable and which ones you should avoid, so they have the final say in what will be accepted for an assignment. Always look at your assignments closely so that you know what types of sources you need to look for. It's always easier to look for something specific than just browsing through everything that's available. Determining what kind of source is needed often comes down to credibility or reliability. Credible sources are those considered to be of high quality and are trustworthy. High-quality sources use high-quality research as the basis for their articles. And using high-quality resources to support your assignments also helps you demonstrate your own credibility as a writer and as a student. Credibility depends in part on these 3 things: author credentials, timeliness, and source type. Here are questions to ask yourself about an author's credentials. Is the author a subject matter expert? Does he or she hold an advanced degree or publish regularly in his or her field? If the author is not an expert, does the author have a reputation as an experienced writer or journalist? Professional writers or journalists are often assigned to write about topics that they don't know a whole lot about, but they know how to ask good questions and seek out quality information. Sometimes, author credibility is hard to determine because a lot of the articles that we find don't list author credentials, but it's worth taking the time to dig a little deeper to try and find out more about an author's experience or professional affiliation. Another factor you can use to determine whether an article is credible or not is timeliness. Is the research used in a source current or dated? You can sometimes check this by looking at the reference list if there is one. Do the references listed fall within the past 5 to 10 years? If there are no references, how well does the article fit into the larger conversation surrounding a topic? This is very important if you are researching current events, for example. Sometimes information changes weekly or even daily, so it's important to determine that you are looking at the most up-to-date, accurate version of events. The length of time a source stays relevant often depends upon its discipline and genre. A source on a history topic may still be relevant even if it is 40 years old. For sources in rapidly changing disciplines, such as technology, however, the standard preferred range is more like 3 to 5 years. In psychology, the most recent source date is preferred. To be safe, if a date range is not specified within an assignment, try to stay within the past 5 to 10 years. A third measure of an article's credibility is source type. Is the publication respected? Does it have a good reputation? And are the publishers trustworthy? Part of determining trustworthiness is looking into the organizations or people behind a publication. In addition to the author's credentials and timeliness of the argument, where a source comes from may also help you determine whether or not a source is reliable. And this information is much easier to find now than it was 20 years ago, because major publishers of magazines or journals have websites that contain some of this information. Now let's take a look at some examples of places where you can find different types of credible sources, both inside and outside the library. For up-to-date articles on current events, check out reputable news sources that are professional and as unbiased as possible. Some examples include the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and the BBC, which stands for British Broadcasting Corporation. If you choose to look to the Internet for source material, make sure that you stick to reputable websites. These include official websites for organizations that end in .org. If you are looking for information on cancer, for example, the American Cancer Society is a better source to turn to than a personal blog. And institutional websites that end in .edu and .gov are usually considered more reputable than commercial sites. Sites that end in .com are sometimes more interested in turning a profit than in sharing high-quality information. But even reputable websites aren't usually the best sources for academic or scholarly information. And as a CSU student, one of the best places you can look for credible academic sources is the CSU Library. Our online databases contain high-quality and trustworthy source material of many types, including articles from magazines, journals, or news sources, ebooks, and even streaming videos from our film database. But articles are the main type of source students look for in our library, so we are going to focus on articles for the remainder of our discussion. Let's say that you've determined from your assignment that you need an article. But what kind of article is the best? Articles can be easily located in our online databases and are usually from these three types of publications: peer-reviewed journals, trade publications, and popular publications, such as magazines and newspapers. Here, I'm simply using the word popular to mean not academic. Let's briefly look at each type to determine its level of credibility. Articles that are found in peer-reviewed journals have a high level of credibility. They are written by scholars or experts in their fields, and they have to be reviewed and accepted by other scholars or experts. They are primarily written for an academic audience, so the readers of these types of articles are usually either students or scholars who are looking to expand their expertise in a given field, and these types of readers demand high-quality research and a substantial reference list. Peer-reviewed articles often take a great deal of time to write because the research is so extensive and the review process for publication is so demanding. Peer-reviewed articles have a high level of credibility because of all the work that goes into the writing and publication process. Articles that are found in trade publications also have a reasonably high level of credibility. They are written by writers with professional knowledge in that field or by writers who have consulted closely with knowledgeable tradespeople or hobbyists. Trade publications are written for a professional audience. If you are in our fire science program, for example, there are more trade publications than peer-reviewed articles available for this program. The writers in the audience for these articles are firefighters, fire chiefs, city planners, building inspectors, and many others who need to be aware of professional or technical information. But even though a lot of time and effort goes into these credible resources, they aren't necessarily vetted by experts to the degree that peer-reviewed journals are, so the turnaround time for publication is faster, maybe a few months instead of years. These articles are definitely marketed for a specific group of people. The third type in our list here include articles from popular publications. I sometimes think of this type of article as passing the newsstand test. If you can buy it from your local newsstand or corner store, then it probably falls into this category. These articles are found in magazines or newspapers and are usually written by staff writers or even freelance writers for an audience of the general public. So you don't usually need an advanced degree or specialized knowledge to read these types of publications. Does this mean that they are not credible sources? Not necessarily. Articles that are written by good writers and that are published by reputable sources often have a reasonably high level of credibility, but they haven't been vetted by experts. Also, magazines and newspapers might contain more articles on current events, So if you are looking for information on something that happened last week or last month, you will probably need to turn to these types of sources instead of a peer-reviewed journal. And for current events, they can often be more credible than the other types listed here because the turnaround time for publication is much faster in order to take into account an ever-changing news cycle. Each of the online databases in the CSU library can be limited to search for these different types of articles, which is very helpful if you know which type you are looking for. Let's say that we need to find a peer-reviewed article in the library. Here is a sample search in our ABI Informed Collection database. Once you enter your search terms in the search boxes, look below for a box labeled Peer Reviewed. When you click that box, you tell the database to limit your search results to peer-reviewed articles only. Note that in this database, the peer-reviewed limiter is next to the full text box, which should already be checked by default because we want you to be able to retrieve articles you can actually read in full. Always leave the full text box checked in order to retrieve full text articles. After you hit search, you will be redirected to the results page. There are two ways you can verify that you have retrieved a list of peer-reviewed articles. First, you should notice in the Search Limits key, which is on the left here in this database, that your results have been filtered to be full text and peer-reviewed. Additionally, under Source Type, you can confirm that most of the results here have come from scholarly journals. A visual cue is also located next to each individual title in the results list. In this database, a graduation cap lets us know that the article to the right is from a scholarly journal. Most of our databases offer the same types of limiters. Here's the same search in the Academic Search Complete database, which looks a little different, but notice the same strategies apply. Again, start by entering your search terms in the search boxes near the top. Then look below for a peer-reviewed limiter box, here again located near the full text limiter. In this database, the peer-reviewed limiter is labeled Scholarly Peer-Reviewed Journals. Even though each database and its limiters may differ slightly in appearance and terminology, the end result is the same, a list of peer-reviewed articles. To limit your article search even further beyond peer-reviewed articles, make sure to explore the main search page of the database you are in. Here is a view of what you will find below the search boxes in the Academic Search Complete database. We can choose to limit our document type to article, for example. This tells the database to leave out any unwanted document types, such as book reviews or company reports. If your assignment specifies articles of a particular length, limit by number of pages. You can use the Publish Date limiter to identify current resources, usually no more than 3 to 5 years old. And publication type will allow us to limit to specific types of publications, such as newspapers or academic journals. After completing a search, review the numbered search results list to identify articles that are the best match for your research topic. Here's the results page for the previous search. Note again that you can continue to refine your search parameters on the left-hand side of the page. To access a specific article, click on the title to be redirected to the detailed record page, or click on PDF full text or HTML full text to be redirected to the complete article. So now that you know how to narrow your search to specific types of articles in our databases, here's a quick overview of how to find those databases in the CSU library. There are multiple places on the library homepage where you can start your search for library resources. One way to start is by typing your keywords into our Discovery search box here. The Discovery search box allows you to search many of our databases at one time, but you may get more relevant results by choosing an individual database that aligns with your topic. To do that, click the Databases button, which redirects to an A to Z list of databases to which the library subscribes. Two other helpful sections of the library homepage are these two: Helpful Library Tools and Video Tutorials. If you are new to the program, or if you are unfamiliar with searching library databases, the tutorials and guides designed by CSU librarians will help you get started quickly. And if you don't know where to go to get started, or you need help finding library resources, you can also contact a librarian in a number of ways. CSU librarians are accessible by phone or email during normal business hours. Also, note the location of the Ask a Librarian chat window. Here you can get help 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even holidays. If you don't know which database to use, or if you have questions about source types or finding articles, please reach out and ask a librarian. We are available via phone and email during CSU business hours, and chat is available at all times, so definitely reach out to us. We are happy to help.